Hello, everybody, and welcome to the live stream. I'm here with Mark.
Hello, everyone.
And we are in San Diego. We actually have a room overlooking the cruise terminal. There's actually Norwegian Jewel in. I was going to try and do it so we had sort of a nice thing at the background, but you can see us. Maybe that would be a good thing. Anyway, so we're here and just checking it's all working fine. Now, the Wi-Fi at the hotel's been so-so. So hopefully in the test we did, it was okay. Looking at there, it's fine. So let's get stuck straight in. Normally I do a couple of housekeeping things. I'll come to those a little bit later, including how the first group cruise for channel members and patrons is going on sale next week. I'll come to that a little bit later. But let's talk straight away about the cruise. So I might jump. There's lots of various questions coming in. So I'm not ignoring questions from Tony and a few other people. But I thought we may as well just jump straight in. Since we're sort of here to talk a little bit about, we built this talking a little bit about the Holland America trip. So Claudia's asked a couple of questions, including one about food and cutbacks on food. But Claudia's asking, hi, Gary and Mark, Happy New Year. It's Happy New Year, by the way. This is Happy New Year to some people.
Yeah, some people it will be, be very early New Year, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. So how did you like the Holland America Cruise? So I'm going to push that one to Mark, since part of it was a trial getting him back on Holland America.
So overall, it was good. We had a good time. We had some great places. I'd never been to Mexico before, so we went to some great ports. Overall, we had a nice time. I mean, it was a hugely busy ship. It was a Christmas cruise, and there were lots of families on there. It was sort of over 100% capacity because there were lots of kids sharing rooms, and I think there were 500 children on board, which, for us is not our favorite thing to have. So there were some issues about it being very busy and very full, but overall we had a nice trip, and we can talk more about.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because there's probably two, as Mark says, there's probably two things. One of which is the Christmas related fact. So it was 110, 115% capacity, because capacity is normally set based on fixed berths, and there was 400 and something kids. So lots of 2 and 3 sharing. So things like kids would sometimes take over the pool or whatever. We didn't actually experience massive problems with lines, but things were very full. So like the Grand Dutch Cafe was very full. When we got tender back from Cabo St. Lucas, it was like an hour-long wait for the tender because everyone was kind of going back at the same time. So there was that aspect.
Yeah.
Then there was the other aspects of like what was good and bad about Holland America. So Claudia asked a question. I had posted a little bit on social media about failing the soft egg test, which is a test I use. Although by the end of the cruise, you'd order soft eggs and then they were fine. Yeah. The afternoon tea was a disappointment. So Claudia was asking, like, do we think that they're cutting back on food? I didn't think so. We had some very good meals on the ship. In fact, we'd actually booked so we got the Club Orange just because we thought it was going to be very busy anyway, so to avoid like slow main dining room, although the menu is the same. But I think we had some very nice food. In fact, we even decided to not go to as many specialty dining because we were enjoying the food in Club Orange. So I think Club Orange made a big difference
as well, because the main restaurant was very, very busy. And, you saw people go, they were queuing to go in, and then they got the buzzer, and they got a buzzer which would then tell them when it was time to go in. And obviously the benefit of having Club Orange is it was less like that, but there were a couple of times we turned up at Club Orange and it was full and we had to wait a short while. To be fair, we never waited more than 10 minutes to go in there. So, it wasn't a big deal. But in my mind, ideally, Club Orange would have the capacity to sit the people that are going to Club Orange. And that was, that was a shame that it wasn't like that. But having said that, it was a very, very busy ship. But I think we were talking about the fact that, what happens with Club Orange is everyone that is in a suite, and then you can buy Club Orange if you're not in a suite. And, I'm sure there is a capacity as to how many people they allow to select Club Orange, but it sort of defeats the object a little bit if it's then over capacity and you can't just walk in and have dinner, which is sort of what the point is.
Yeah, it's interesting because we spoke to Vinny, who was like the concierge guy, and he was saying that from their perspective, that's the challenge with Club Orange is they kind of oversell Club Orange in terms of numbers. So the point of it is supposed to be that one of the pluses is you don't reserve, because in the main dining room you can make reservations where you can't in Club Orange. So quite a few people talking a little bit about stuff on food, how food was good. The point, actually, this is an important point that Monkey B makes, is food was good, but one of the things that we're seeing, and we saw that also there, is lobster is no longer included in the menu. So lobster was on the menu. I think it was on the menu every night, but you had to pay for it. Even in the specialities, lobster you paid for. And a lot of the cruise lines, of course, are starting to introduce upcharges for things like lobster. So that was very noticeable. And also, I think they were charging for some of the steak, if I remember correctly, as well.
Yeah, they were.
But not if you went to the speciality, but in the actual main dining room and the other, the other dining rooms. Someone was asking about, so let's talk a little bit about just the entertainment side, because that was kind of interesting. The music walk, personally, I think, let me just take that off. So we don't have a question on there. The music walk, I think, is really great, but you didn't really use the music walk. Like, I don't think you even went to any of the music walk.
No, I mean, it's just, I can see that if you're very into music, very into that type of music, then it's great. It's just, for me, there is less interest in it, to be honest. But they had a good casino, and those people that know me know that I like to go and play some blackjack. So that was there. But going back to entertainment, I think it was probably very good, wasn't it? It was just, it's not. Yeah,
I think the thing with entertainment is, I think it was kind of mixed in a way. Is, obviously the music walk is very strong, and most of the performers in the music walk were really, really strong performers, and it was very packed. The thing with the main theatre, there was no guest entertainers, which was interesting. So they had the one-step dance company, and then they used some of their enrichment talks, the sort of multimedia things, as some of the entertainment, which is kind of an interesting choice. But the thing with the one-step dance company is, like, Mark, you went to the first one. I thought it was great, but actually didn't go to them again because it's basically the same show. It's slightly different themed, but it's basically some clever project. I know you went to the second show. You went to the
and again, the staging and the projectors all around the screen is really good. And the first show was, them dancing and using this screen, and it was very clever the way they would do it. They were interacting, with the screen, and they were dancing, and the kind of screen was going with them. It was very clever. But as Gary said, each show was very similar to that.
They're very similar. Someone was asking, I'll just glance because I'm sort of trying to link the questions. Did you feel a bit like a fish in a bowl in Club Orange? Because the Club Orange in most of the ships, other than the Rotterdam, was originally created as kind of America's test kitchen, and it then dropped that concept and turned it into Club Orange. So it's sort of like this glass wall on set. You do feel a little bit like that, particularly because all the anytime dining on that is, I think that's the floor they use for anytime dining. So you've got people, wandering past a lot and then standing waiting with their buzzers. So you do feel a little bit like that. But
and the other issue about the fact that it was a test kitchen is the tables. There are high top tables, which is sort of fine for breakfast. Feels slightly funny for dinner sitting at a high top table, but no need to, and we certainly got used to that. But the configuration of the tables, because they're fixed and they have what were, I think, big extractor fans above them. They're nearly all tables for 4, and there were lots of people wanting table for 2, and indeed there were some solo travelers in there. So actually, although we would arrive and there would be no tables, it was because there were 1s and 2s on tables for 4, and they had no way of splitting those tables. So again, I understand why it was set up as a test kitchen. It wasn't built as that. But if they're doing some reconfiguration, making more tables for 2 would be make a big difference.
Someone refers us to the Rotterdam, seen pictures of the Rotterdam, and I know Hetty, who's here. Hi, Hetty, being on the Rotterdam, and I think they've created more as a dining room, and it looks quite upmarket and stuff. So let's go. So Janet, what are your plans for tonight? Well,
I'm getting on an aeroplane and flying home tonight. Actually,
we're flying home in a couple of sort of later this evening. Although we're slightly confused about the flight because they seem to be changing all the routings of the flight. So we're supposed to fly direct San Diego to Heathrow, but the last few days they've been talking about flying via LA, but the times are still the same. Anyway, so our plans are we're going completely wild and flying home.
It means you don't have to come up with something to do on New Year's Eve because you're on an airplane.
So Tony's asked this question. So it's slight diversion, although it's Holland America related. Hi, Tony. Thinking about doing a Baltic cruise in late September 2023. What's the weather like? When is a good time to go? Tony, I went last year No, this year, because we're still this year, aren't we? And it was a little bit chilly, to be honest. It does get a little bit chilly. So September often in Europe is a bit hit or miss. It can be really nice weather. Sometimes it can't. So if you're going more like down to the Greek islands, you can have really nice weather. We've been in October to Greek islands and have really nice weather, like early 20 degrees Celsius. So it is a little bit chilly and it's quite grey. So actually it was interesting because the time that I went, which was late September into October time, if I remember correctly, it was a little bit grey. So you can't really see here. San Diego is really grey today. So actually wasn't great from video in perspective. Of course, it's less busy. So the plus side, it's less busy, but it's a little bit chilly. I mean, in reality, the problem is if you go July, August time when the weather's really nice, the places are really packed. So the nice thing about going in September is if you're doing the hop on hop off bus like I did in Oslo, or you go to any of the excursions, it's not crazy busy. So and you're going, I think, a lot for the sites because you're not going to go to beach and stuff. So I quite like going that time of the year. It was less busy, it was less costly, and so on. But I mean, obviously, the best if you want to see it at its brightest, sunniest, July, August is the best time to go. Oh, Bob and Holly are here. Okay, we was out. Bob and Holly may say, no, they're there. So Deception Island, Bob and Holly are on, I guess, heading towards the end of their big Antarctic experience. Looking forward to seeing the videos when they come out.
We're looking after San Diego.
We're looking after San Diego for Bob and Holly. So Deception Island is I find really interesting. It's like a caldera volcanic thing, and it's all very volcanic. I was going to say that, but it's good. So, and Bob and Holly are on the Seabourn Venture, right? Which and they unfortunately lost going to South Georgia because there's an issue with the stabilizers. So Seabourn have been adjusting some of their itineraries. So they're heading back over Drake Passage with no stabilizers. So I guess they're
good luck.
So I guess they're planning that very carefully in terms of timing. So on. So Barb had Barb had not a great experience. She got COVID on Queen Victoria and didn't have a great way that they treated with her. Isn't it time to stop declaring COVID symptoms and just carry on regardless? Well, it's interesting, Barb, because we sort of had a bit of that discussion when we were on Holland America, because there definitely was some like on all ships there's some COVID, and towards the end of it I heard some people talking about, my husband's now out of isolation and the cabin smells of disinfectant or whatever. So it's happening, and I think it's interesting because the cruise lines. I mean, it's interesting because on our cruise, I noticed the captain became more insistent. I don't know if you noticed that, about washing your hands and wearing masks in busy areas, which they were less at the beginning. So I'm assuming there was kind of some COVID.
But it was all, we suggest that.
Yeah.
When you get on the tenders, you may want to wear your mask. Yeah. We suggest you may want. There was no.
But it did ramp up.
Nothing was compulsory.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it's interesting because I suspect most people are doing exactly what Barb says, is they just aren't, carrying on and kind of declaring. It's interesting because we both got. I like it. It's a really bad cold for a day.
Yeah, I still have a bit of a cold.
And there was that whole thing of, should we do tests? Should we do tests just in case? It's a cold. And we were a little bit like, what happened? So I think. But
we did, and it wasn't, just to be clear.
It did. Yeah, we did. We did do a test, and it wasn't. The answer is I did. I couldn't convince Mark to go. So yesterday morning I went. I thought it was fantastic. I really, really loved it. And we were comparing steps yesterday. I did like thousands more steps than Mark did. He watched TikToks, I think is what you did.
I watched Netflix, in fact. But yes.
Okay, Netflix, TikToks. Yes. Yeah. Anyway, I thought it was fantastic. And so Happy New Year. Jerry's giving us Happy New Year. Beach, I think I've said that. Okay. I didn't see it. So Colorado, nice play on Colorado, I guess. They didn't seem to have it. No. So it's interesting.
What is the Mariner lunch?
Well, because on embarkation day, what a lot of cruise lines do, if you're like Pinnacle level or whatever, different levels on cruise lines, they'll do a lunch in the main dining room if you are that. So like when I think, and they sometimes do it for suite guests and, like it's a Pinnacle on, I can't remember. So they normally do a lunch, but they didn't advertise, and I can't remember what a Mariner level I am. And they didn't seem to do it. There was nothing on I didn't get anything about that. And I didn't see anything in the daily program, or in fact, none of the main dining rooms were open at all because we had to go to the Lido, which was like chaos because the only option was the Lido, and it was pretty chaotic. And Mark said, "This is the first and last time I'm going to the Lido," and I think it was the first and last time you went to the Lido.
Yeah.
So that was the downside of being so full, as Lido is obviously a default choice, particularly when the dining room is busy. Anyway, they didn't. The other thing that they didn't bring back, and someone was asking me this the other day, is I've been on a lot of cruises post, since shutdown ended, and I can't think of any that have brought back the traditional, captain's cocktail party, officers' cocktail party, and many of them haven't brought back the lunch side. But certainly there was no cocktail party. The most we got was the captain on the first night, the second night, the sea day night, where the captain came out and said, "Oh, here's my senior officers, cheers." But there was no. We did get one voucher for a drink for Mariner, which we didn't use.
Yeah,
that was all. So it's a long way of answering that question, I think. We have to ask about Vegas. Did you enjoy your time in Vegas? What hotel was your favorite? Did you enjoy Vegas?
Loved Vegas. We loved Vegas. We had a great time. We stayed at the Aria.
It's the first time we've stayed at the Aria.
Which is the first time we stayed there. And we were the check-in desk dream because they were trying to sell us an upgrade. And we were like, yeah, let's get upgraded. So we ended up in a sky suite, in Aria, which was amazing. And we had such a fun time, actually. I mean, we were there. We arrived on Sunday and left on Wednesday, I think. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday. Anyway, it was there were enough people there, but it wasn't super busy. And I think it was getting busier as it came up to the Christmas weekend. And that made it nice, because I think Vegas, when it's too busy, can be too much. But we had a great time there. We just kind of hung out in Vegas, went to some nice restaurants, played a bit of blackjack.
Went to see the new show at Wynn, which needs a lot of work. It's not quite there yet, but it was good to see. It's very spectacular, but the story is very complicated, and you can see the audience was a little bit indifferent towards the end.
Yeah.
So there's clearly a lot. Whoopsie. Sorry.
But staying at the Aria was a new, just to answer, staying at the Aria was a new experience for us.
And we really liked it.
We really liked it.
I mean, to give you a sense of Vegas, we had a couple of days back in San Diego when we got a flight, and we were looking because we realized how better to use our M Life things to get comps and stuff, which is what we used to go last time. And I realized I could have got comp stays, but because of the flights in the US being so messed up, with Southwest, we didn't want to risk flying to Vegas. But if the flights had been running not normally, we would, instead of staying in San Diego, we've gone back to Vegas because we were enjoying it. So we just had such a great time. And we also realized through M Life, through the gambling stuff, we could actually get like basically free things. Although, as Mark said, we did that this time, but we still ended up upgrading. But anyway, so Jason, thank you very much for a super chat. Love all your videos, which great to hear. Just returned home from my first cruise. It was on the Norwegian Encore out of Miami. That was the one that you are booked, but may not end up doing. I'm in love with cruising and booking my next one. Thank you for your travel trips. Oh, great. Okay, well, thank you very much. So, great. I'm so pleased to hear that went so well. Encore is a great ship. I've only spent one night on Encore. Two nights on Encore, which was a shakedown cruise. So thanks very much to Jason, and I'm pleased to hear that you're addicted. And keep watching, of course. Laurie, are masks required on Holland American cruise ships to Alaska? I guess we will see, Laurie, what the rules are as we head into the season. But at the moment, masks aren't required, as Mark was saying a little bit earlier. They are recommended rather than required, unless you're sailing in some parts, like in Australia, they reintroduced masks at one point of time because there was cases. So at the moment, no, they're recommendations, but things can constantly keep changing. So
and I think we saw very few people wearing masks.
We saw very, very, very few people wearing masks. And also for crew, not that many crew were wearing masks.
Yeah.
Because again, they can choose to wear masks. So actually what was interesting, we noticed the crew that had a bit of a sniffle or a cough were kind of wearing a mask. And there was, I would say 3% of people were wearing masks, if that.
Yeah.
That's a very, very few people were wearing masks on board. And Monkey be making the point that, the requirements are there. Really important, though, is keep watching, because things may change. And I guess, we'll see, China's reopening, and now lots of countries are reintroducing because they're worried about new variants coming out of China and all sorts. So just keep an eye on it. But at the moment, there aren't. Pete, here we go. How good was the Wi-Fi on board? Now because we got the have it all package, because when I booked it on board, and they did a deal which had the have it all included. But both of us changed to the premium, so we paid $40 to upgrade from the surfing package, I think it's called, to the streaming package. It was kind of okay.
It was okay, actually. I mean, we did a couple of FaceTime calls, but we were using the Wi-Fi, but we were in port as opposed to being at sea when we did it. At sea, sometimes it wasn't great, but it was okay.
I mean, I was able to stream a little bit, so I watched a little bit of YouTube. I wasn't able to upload big video files. It was okay. I mean, as Mark said, we FaceTime home a couple of times, and that was pretty good. I think we did it on the ship. Yeah, we did it on a sea day, I think. So it was okay. They don't yet have the Starlink now. Like Bob and Holly are down, as we saw, that because they're posting questions and comments, and I think they now have Starlink on. So that will be interesting to see as that improves. Here we go. Southern California lady golfer making the point. Come back to Tony's question. Was on Oceania. Didn't see the sun for the first 2 weeks. Not much rain. Actually, it was a good point. There wasn't rain. It was just cold and overcast. In fact, I always overpack warm stuff, and it was probably the first cruise I'd probably underpacked warm stuff. Interestingly enough, Paul, yes, is the answer. So I've read that shareholders in Carnival get savings on cruises. Does this apply for lots of lines? It doesn't apply in the USA. So Paul, basically, each of the key groups that are publicly listed, so Norwegian Cruise Line Group, the Royal Caribbean Group, and the Carnival Group, all have shareholder benefits. They're slightly different, but roughly speaking, you need to own 100 shares. So like with Carnival Corporation, you need to own 100 shares, and you can then get onboard credit on all of their lines. So the same if you're on Royal Caribbean shares on all their lines, and the same on Norwegian Cruise Line. So for example, I have I can't remember, but more than 100 shares in Carnival that I've had for a long time, which worth nothing now because of the share price. So, but anyway, separate point. So what you have to do is, if you just Google like shareholders benefit Carnival, it gives you you can download a little PDF, and it tells you for each line what the benefits are. So for example, on the Norwegian, on the Holland America one, I think because it was a 7-day cruise, I think I got another $50 onboard credit. So it's only the shareholder gets it. But you have to apply each time, which is a bit of a pain. But now it's all done by email. You just have to send some sort of proof that you own the shares, some sort of offline or whatever. And you need to do it after the final payment is made. What was quite good is Holland America, they messed up. I think it was actually the Baltic cruise they messed up. They didn't do it in time. So what quite good is they looked up all of my future bookings and they applied it for each of my upcoming Holland America trips. But it applies to all of them. Questions on Mars, maybe that's the one we asked. Lots of a little bit of, oh look, someone had a highlight of their cruise, which is great. Tony, meeting Gary was the highlight of a cruise, not meeting Mark. Though.
No,
just me. Maybe you were the low light of their cruise, or maybe you weren't with me.
We weren't together.
I did meet lots of people, so it was great to meet. It was actually really good. I met loads and loads of people like Tony on the trip. Originally, when we first got on, I thought there weren't going to be many people we'd meet, and then it's slowly across the course of the trip. Because what a lot of people do is, it happened even when we were waiting to get off the ship. Like a couple came and said, "Oh, we didn't want to talk to you before, but if you ever see me on the ship, please do come and talk. I'd say hello. I really do like it." And a lot of people come up almost apologetically, but don't. I love talking to people because at the end of the day, I make the videos for you, and at the end of the day, you're paying for my cruising, because without you, I can't cruise so much, because obviously from the advertising, that's so definitely come and say hello, because you're my boss, I guess. No comparison between TikTok and Netflix.
Yeah, thank you.
What is the Marin Lounge? Hopefully, I've explained that. So that's a loyalty, people who are certain levels are. So Monkey saying again, 2 to 3% of passengers women mass, about the same, say the same as us. Cruising, let's have a look. Any plans? They're asking Beth the question. So my next cruise, I'll just say that because people are asking Beth, who's a big fan of Region 7C. My first Region 7C cruise is in about 10 days after we get back. It's my 100th cruise, and I'm going to be going on the oh my goodness, I've forgotten what I'm going on now. That's bad. I keep telling people I'm on Splendor, but I'm not going on Splendor. I'm going on Explorer, I think, and then the other one. Anyway, my 100th is my next region one. Half price, no masks, lots of cotton masks. Oh, here we are. So captains. So on Oceania in September, October, there was some captains' welcome parties. I think maybe some of the smaller ships are bringing those back. We're interested if they come back because obviously I guess they're quite expensive to run. Here we go. Was there a question before that?
No, just the one above.
I'm planning a family birthday cruise. Okay, we'll come back to Pretty Georgia Lady in a second. Just a reminder, by the way, actually, that's the reason I missed that is like Southern Cal Lady Golfer, if you write the word question in caps like that, which is great, it's easy to see as we go through. So they don't miss them. So what show did you say wasn't great and what great restaurants did you eat at? So the show we saw was called Awakening. So it's just opened a couple of weeks ago at the Wynn. It's replaced La Rev. And it's not quite a Cirque show. It's a combination of very poorly executed magic in one segment. But the effects are amazing because they've got all these, the stage moves around and these big puppets come out. But
it's a bit like they forgot that they also need
they got
a story, a concept as well as an amazing stage and amazing props.
They got so excited by all the bells and whistles they forgot actually what people connect with is the story, and the story is really, really complicated. By the middle of it, I just gave up trying to follow the story, and you're not kind of rooting for the heroes of the story. So that I think it will become a great show. They spent 150 million on it apparently, so I guess they will figure it out. I have one restaurant that I adore more than anything else, and we went there multiple times, and that's Din Tai Fung, which is the Taiwanese dumpling dim sum restaurant,
which is in Aria.
It's in Aria. Really hard to get into, luckily, because I knew I was obsessed with. We'd booked way before we went, but it's my favorite restaurant. And others, was there anyone else of note that we can?
I don't think anywhere else of note they went to, but we loved it.
Huge fan.
The one about that.
Oh, sorry, I forgot about Pretty Georgia Lady's question. Hi, fellas. Happy New Year to you too. I'm planning a family birthday cruise to Alaska. What is your recommendation for cruise line? We need good food, entertainment, and indoor pools. So I would probably, I'm guessing if it's a family birthday, because I'm guessing you've got lots of different ages, is what I'm assuming. So I would tend to look at something like Norwegian. Norwegian are very strong in Alaska. They're one of the 3 lines that have regular access to Glacier Bay. So that was actually the one that Mark was looking at when he was going with his friend on their first time cruise to Alaska. The advantage with that, and the reason I'm saying it's good for family, is it suits all budget ranges as well. So you could have some of the family could be going, in premium Haven suites. You can have some which are going in inside cabins. So it fits everyone's budget. But also there is so much to do. There are, I can't remember on Encore, but something like maybe 13 bars, 13 restaurants. They do the big show. Can you remember what was on Encore? Was it Priscilla or was it Rock of Ages? But they do a full-on Broadway show. Then they'll have something else like Choir of Man.
And some of them have the go-kart tracks.
And then Encore has, which runs there a lot, has the go-kart track, has laser tag, and so on. So there's a huge variety of stuff to do. So that I would look at that. The other thing I would say though is in Alaska, even lines which are like Holland America, for example, will be very different to a normal Holland America cruise because there will be lots of families. So I went on Princess there. We've been on Holland America there, and you'll see lots of people wearing, the Griswold family Alaska outing or whatever. So lots of, multi-generational families go. So the cruise lines, all of them tend to be good for families. But I think something like Norwegian, because from a budget perspective, it's wide ranging, huge amounts of choice. They go into Glacier Bay. They have all the same great excursions. So I would look at that as a starting point. The other thing I would say is based on the size of the group. So if you're going to have maybe 16 people or more going, also then talk to the cruise line about group rates, because once you get to 16 passengers or more, some of the cruise lines will offer you some group benefits, whether it's some discounting, some maybe a free berth for the 16th person, or extra things you can add on, and so on. So that's definitely worth looking at, I would say. But that would be my starting point. M. Dave, hi there. Happy New Year. We'd like to visit Africa. are there good cruise options to consider? Not sure if cruises good options. Exploring Africa. Love your videos. So there are cruises to Africa. There's a couple of those. The most of them though tend to do Southern Africa. So in fact, in February, end of January 2024 into February 24, I've actually just recently booked a Silversea cruise, which goes and out of Cape Town and goes to like Namibia, goes right down the coast to Durban, Richards Bay, and so on. But there's a couple like MSC actually sails out of Cape Town. They base Cape Town there, but although I think it's very mixed reviews, it's a very old ship down there. Azamara go down there, and they do that sort of Cape Town to Cape Town thing, sort of round in the summertime, that sort of November, December, January, February time. There are, however, other cruises which will include part of Africa, which will do a little bit more of Africa, and they tend to do it as part of sort of world voyages. So if you look at Cunard, for example, they often, one of them will do parts of Africa. Now, it depends whether they do large parts of Africa. Many of them might just skip down and then do Namibia, South Africa, might do a little bit of Mozambique, Madagascar, and so on. There was a very interesting trip, which I think has happened now, which Holland America did out of Fort Lauderdale, which was, I can't remember the exact name, it was called the African Explorer or something, where they got to slightly more places in Africa. So it tends to focus very much Southern Africa, part of it. If you want to explore, but from those, many of them will do add-ons, so you can do safari trips or go up to Victoria Falls and so on. If you really want to go and do a deeper trip, it's probably better to go to like South Africa, maybe include a bit of Zimbabwe, Botswana, and that sort of stuff. The other option is river cruising. So across Europe I think it's called the African Queen. They do on Lake Kariba, parts of Botswana, they do that as well. So it depends what you want to do. If you want to go like big, incredible safaris, I would say it's better to go to Tanzania and go on a safari to Tanzania, which is amazing. But you can do South Africa, do Kruger, and so on. So I think I've just asked that. No, that's one I've just answered, isn't it? Let's have a look. Did you venture off the strip? We didn't actually venture off the strip this time. We normally do, but we didn't because we were only there for a couple of nights. So we didn't venture off the strip this time. Let's have a look. So here's a question from LinkedIn. When we go live now, it goes live on Facebook and on YouTube and on LinkedIn. So it's always great to know that's working because I get a question. Nigel, hi there, Nigel. Happy New Year to you both. We're planning a cruise for November time and likely to be our honeymoon. Congratulations. We prefer the smaller ships. Do you have a recommendation for something special that is LGBTQ friendly? Thanks and safe travels home. Well, Nigel, the good news is I think pretty much all ships are LGBT friendly. There's no lines that are have a reputation for not being LGBT friendly. And cruising, you often find lots of gay couples and so on board. Not so many. I haven't come across so many transgender. There was, I think it was probably more. Would classify themselves as they on our trip. It was more kind of gender fluid, and no one bat an eyelid at them at all. So, and people think of Holland America as being really conservative, even on Cunard, which people think is being considered as very LGBT friendly. Anyway, in terms of what I would say, if you're looking to go for a honeymoon in November. November time is most of your options are really going to be more Caribbean related at that time of the year. So you might want to choose one of the small lines like Oceania, Azamara, and those lines are especially known for being very LGBT friendly.
But bearing in mind that the Caribbean is not very LGBT.
Bearing in mind the islands themselves are not, although
I think Barbados has just changed the law.
Yeah,
I think.
The irony is actually, you're right. The cruise lines are, but theoretically, well, not legally, they are. It's still illegal in many of those. Lots of Caribbean countries. Yeah. Although it never seems to be an issue, but it is something to bear in mind. So if you're going on honeymoon, one of the things, if you really want to, I would say, if you have a budget and you really want to go splash out, I would say look at something like Seabourn. Silversea kind of experience, they would be amazing as a honeymoon experience because it would be obviously expensive, but you're going to go to slightly different islands, more small islands. It's going to be very upmarket, very pampered kind of time.
And you'd feel very special.
And you would feel very special. Yeah. And they would kind of know it was your honeymoon and they would kind of make more of a fuss. If you're on a bigger ship, it'll get lost a little bit more. I'm trying to think in November. I mean, the other thing with November, if you want to do something more exotic, is also some of the Japan cruises and stuff are some of the parts of Asia are still going. So, for example, I'm going this year at sort of October, November time, doing a Japan cruise, and it's a very nice round Japan cruises. So if you want to do something a little bit more exotic, it will be colder though, but there's lots of lines like Princess, Holland America, Regent, Seven Sea. If you want to do something a little bit more exotic, I'm trying to think about. It's not a great time for French Polynesia. French Polynesia is more earlier time because that's a great place. Obviously, very popular honeymoon area. Hutty's saying, "Yeah, Chad and Matthew," and I probably should know what that is about, but I missed that. Caroline's doing her first Virgin Voyages experience, Miami to Barcelona. As you're doing the transatlantic, that would be great. Sarah is here. Happy New Year.
Hi, Sarah.
Which is great to see Sarah here. And
next one.
What?
Next question.
Next question. Okay, we're not,
no.
We're not talking to Sarah anymore. We're not, sorry, Sarah, we're not allowed to talk to you anymore. We're moving on.
A good question.
This one.
Yeah.
Okay. Mark's obsession. Okay. Well, obsession. Really enjoyed it. Do you recommend the spa or cabanas on Holland America? First time cruiser on Holland America this January. Love your videos. Do you recommend the spa or the cabanas?
So we didn't go to the spa, in fact, but we did get a cabana in the retreat. And actually we hadn't managed to book one before we went, and we managed on the first day to get one every day. And I loved the retreat. I mean, which was partly because the ship was very, very busy. So around the pools was very busy and there were lots of kids. And the retreat was, as it's described, was a retreat. And there are maybe 20 cabanas up there, something like that. And, you get nice service up there. You can have your breakfast and your lunch up there, which, I mean, they basically go to the Lido or go to one of the restaurants and get your lunch. It's a little bit hit and miss. That wasn't great. But actually, it's very peaceful, relaxing up there. And we really enjoyed our time up there. So if you can, particularly on the sea days, clearly when everyone is on the ship, it's very nice. But even on the port days, we may have been out for half a day and then came back in the afternoon and it was less busy. And they have, really lovely day beds and really comfortable lounges up there. So it was a really nice treat to have that space. I mean,
it's the first time we did it when we were on Seabourn. We did their equivalent, which is the first time I'd really done it. I hadn't really done it before, and that was a great experience. And I think it added an enormous amount to this trip, as Mark said, because places were busy. But it did. I think it was much better value personally. I go to if I've got leftover onboard credit, I will go to the spa. But I always find it just so expensive. The treatment's expensive, plus you get the 18% added on. Then you have to do the whole sell thing of selling your products and all
plus
that.
You feel you probably need to take a little bit on top of that.
Yeah.
And,
So in terms of value, I mean, the cabanas aren't that cheap, but I thought it was a great experience because you have them all day from 9 a.m. in the morning. I think they ask you to leave at 5. No, they close at 5, but they ask you to be gone by 6. Yeah. But they're still packing up at 5. But as Mark said, they'll go and fetch your drinks for you. You get your chocolate strawberries in the afternoon, which you ask nicely. They bring more, and they give you champagne, which we don't drink, but they bring that round. They go, as Mark said, the lunch thing. They'll go and fetch you lunch. You'd order Cobb salad and you get some sort of salad. So, but they would still go and do it.
And actually, one of the attendants recognised Gary from YouTube.
Oh yeah, they got very
excited. Was very excited by that, and so we'll be in a video. Which will be nice.
So I would say I would definitely, and I guess in January I'm assuming you need to do it when it's warm. On our last day, it was a bit cold and it was a waste of money.
Yeah.
Because we booked it. So it wasn't so it needs to be, if you're in the Caribbean or whatever, I think it's a great experience. You're not finding I think you have your own, we booked it for the whole week. So we had our own dedicated, we had number 11, which was ours. The downside of it, you don't have on some of the newer ships, on Koningsdam they didn't, but I think some of the ships might have a little plunge pool area. So they don't have that.
Or on Seabourn, they had kind of a hot tub on there, didn't they? But,
I thought it was great, and I would absolutely do it again. I think it added a lot, particularly if the ship is full, or the weather's really hot, because it's nice and shady. You have a nice little shaded area, but they have the things outside. So I just thought it was much better money, much better value for money. So I don't quite available to do a dining room option. I'm not sure on that. I think you might be in main dining room, but they've changed. A lot of the cruise lines are changing those. Here we go. Cruising from the Ozarks. Hi there. You inspired us to take a cruise to Norway. Great. Norway's fabulous. One of the must-dos is the Flam Railway. Have you done so? Any tips? So the Flam Railway is absolutely magnificent to do. So I would definitely have that as a must-do. And the only thing I would say, my only tip is book as early as you possibly, as soon as it comes on sale, because the cruise lines all tend to have an allocation, and they do. It is the one tour that sells out really, really quickly. But it is magnificent, and the whole way up and the whole way back is great. So that's my only tip: is make sure you get on it. And then the rest is all great. Sorry, someone had asked. I realized I didn't ask the question about the indoor pool. Sorry, thanks for asking that, Laurel. So Prince George Lady asked about indoor pool. So on most of the ships, they will have as they say, the retractable area. So pretty much all cruise lines will have some form of indoor option, which may only be indoor some of the time when it's
But
cold.
if the weather isn't good, it will be
exactly.
Indoor, yeah.
So nickel and diming question. I mean, all cruise lines are looking to make as much money as possible once you're on board, and it's always been the case. So the cruise lines, there's I've seen something. I can't remember the name of the site now. It's slipped away, but they track what people spend, and they show that on average, most cruisers will spend at least 50% of what they spend on the fare once they're on board. So nickel and diming, as it's called, has always been there. I think there is, obviously coming out of the shutdown, there's a lot of pressure, I guess, to make up income. And it's interesting when you look at what the cruise lines are saying in all their earnings call, is all of them are talking about trying to push more money to the bottom line through increasing spend on board. So I think we're going to see that happening a lot. All the cruise lines, or many of the cruise line companies, have said that they are looking to make savings in the food budget, because that's a massive part. So I think that's why we're seeing things like most cruise lines introducing up charges for things like lobster and so on. I know at Carnival, it's based on how long the trip is. So over a certain amount of days, they don't upcharge. But I think we've seen that. It was interesting. I should probably have had it here. But one of the things that was very noticeable, Holland America have almost called it out, because on the daily program, they now have this big thing which says promotion. And it was when you looked at the first sea day, there was I can't remember the exact number, but say for every 10 activities, 7 or 8 were called promotion. So they are, I guess, being honest about it. But did we find it a lot? I guess there is a lot, because you've got special dining, you've got the upcharge on the food. I didn't feel more than normal.
No, I didn't feel any more than normal, to be honest.
And the reason for that is also, I think, is because what the cruise lines are doing is many of them are introducing their equivalent of the on Holland America, it's called the Have It All package. So you have the drinks package, the basic Wi-Fi, and then you get discount on excursions, and you get some special dining. So you kind of pay that up front. So you almost miss the nickel and dime.
And that feels quite nice, because
it feels like it's done, and then you almost feel like it's free.
Yeah.
Then Princess Plus, Princess Premier, Celebrity have they're always included. So they've all sort of bundled them. Bundle them a little bit more. But I think we will. It's always been the case, and I think we will still see cruise lines desperately trying to get us to spend more. Vicky booked our very first cruise on Holland America for May for an Alaskan cruise. Scared and excited. You should. I wouldn't be scared. I would definitely be excited for that. It's a great first choice of a cruise. Holland America are amazing in Alaska. They really know how to do Alaska really, really well. We booked a suite because why not? Absolutely. If you can do it, do it. The problem is, though, Vicky, is you will never be able to go back. It's a bit like you'll never be able to go back. And I was having a discussion with Mark actually yesterday, because I was saying, I should really, as I think about, I should probably go in a smaller cabin, save a bit more, plan for the future, sort of stuff. And it's like, but when you come to book, it's like, it was so nice being on, particularly because the ship was full. You have the lounge, and and what's really nice is check-in is a little bit quicker. In this case, it doesn't really matter, because we need to disembark. Disembarkation's a little bit earlier if you want it, and it's great. But it's an expensive first choice, Vicky. Do you guys know much about Norwegian? Well, you haven't been on Norwegian. I have been on Norwegian.
No.
So yes, Norwegian. I mean, I think Norwegian is a line does divide people a little bit. I think Norwegian is very, very good at what they do. They are really clear. They're the ones who kind of created the freestyle concept, which is, people can be, that you can wear shorts to dinner if you want to. They have huge amounts of choice. There is a lot linked to the other question about nickel and diming. You do pay a lot for everything extra. So all the bars, all the, if you want to do the go-karting, or you want to play the laser tag, or you want to.
What about the restaurants? Do you pay for that?
Well, you would obviously not main dining room and the buffet. You don't, but they then have 13 special dining options, 2 of which are free. Is it 2 free? The sitting there in Form 1, it's free, but most of them you pay extra for. But they are really great if you're going multi-generational, if you want high energy stuff. There's so much to do. They have the big Broadway show. What a lot of people see is huge value, because going to a Broadway show or a Western show is unbelievably expensive, but you can go and see a full-on show, and so you choose your line based on what show you want to go and see. So, for example, one of the new ships has got Six, which is the big hot musical. They have Donna Summer, the musical, I think, is coming on Viva. Was it on Prima? So they have those big shows. Also, what they have, David, linked to a little bit about Vicky's question on the suite, is they have the Haven. Now, some people are getting a little bit touchy about the Haven, but the Haven is their ship within a ship, which has beautiful suites, beautiful dining room, beautiful concierge service, their own swimming pool, etc. So if you really want to go real high end, they also have that as well. So I think they do really well, and they're very different. They're in the same category as Royal Caribbean, but Royal Caribbean is kind of the big kind of mega ship. Norwegian feels a little bit more, because the venues are a little bit smaller. I mean, some people worry that on Prima, I haven't been on that class ship, the venues are almost too small, but in fact, there's a Norwegian ship in today.
That leads on to the next question.
Okay. Question from Amanda. Mark cancelling Encore, question mark. My Encore to Alaska was fantastic, but Norwegian Getaway to Bermuda 2 weeks ago was horrible. Crowded, hour-long lines, short-tempered staff. Is this normal? So the reason Mark is cancelling Encore is because he sort of has a work clash, and probably makes more sense to be in the West Coast now with stuff.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't. I mean, I am keen to try it. It's just I ended up having a work trip straight after, and I was going to be flying here, there, and everywhere, and therefore I've made that trip simpler. And I'd paid a very small deposit, and it was easy to do. So that's why, not because I decided I didn't want to go on it particularly. I'm still not sure I would love it, but that's not the reason why I've cancelled it.
So, Amanda, the thing to watch is particularly if you're doing this 2 weeks ago, is in the Caribbean. It's very interesting when you look at how ships have recovered, or cruise lines have recovered. In the Caribbean, many ships are sailing at over 100% capacity at the moment. Now, that can also be the case in Alaska as well, because of multi-generational and people sharing cabins. So you were seeing cruise lines, like I haven't seen specifically the data from Norwegian that I can remember, but Royal Caribbean have been talking about, whilst they might have been sailing in Europe, 50, 60% capacity, they've been sailing in the Caribbean quite consistently this year, over 100% capacity. So that could also be the one issue. The second issue, of course, is many cruise lines are still struggling in terms of crew and crew numbers. So I think that's probably more a function of, a kind of a perfect storm, if you like. I mean, we were quite lucky. I mean, some people have spoken about Koningsdam being a little bit understaffed. They seem to have upstaffed a little bit more. Like, we didn't see that. And
it was just the sheer number of people and the capacity of restaurants.
Exactly. But it's interesting because cruise lines, obviously, someone asked a question a bit earlier, which I missed, which was, it is a bit of a shock having been on so many cruises where it's 50% full. And I was talking to a couple of people who were on that Baltic cruise that I was referring to earlier. So we were on, it was 50, 55% capacity. And suddenly being on the Koningsdam, which is like basically double the number, was a bit of a shock, because it was a little bit.
It did feel very full.
But it did feel full, and it would normally be as full. So it was a bit of a shock. Now, going to Alaska on how many bottles of wine can I bring? I can't find out. Now, I need to remember, I think I'm right in saying, but again, you need to triple check, is I think it's 1 bottle per person. Bearing in mind, if you bring a bottle, if you use it in the restaurants, you will get a corkage charge. Now, they don't always charge the corkage charge, but the corkage charge is $20. But do have a look. I feel like I've got it somewhere.
Someone's answering that there.
Someone answered it. Good. Yeah, one bottle at embarkation. Bear in mind that if you bring stuff on afterwards, they normally will take that away for you and hold off the cruise. So if you go out and port and buy it, they don't normally let you normally bring that on. The only cruise line which allows you really to bring more than that is Norwegian. Actually, Norwegian doesn't have the same limits of theirs. Just confirming the numbers on the return. If you the question on shares and so on. So let's have a look. Isolated, escorted. We're talking about those. I think it's a chat. Let's have a core question. The point is, a lot of them have bought share price because the share price is so low. Okay, I have to face it. Just remind you, if you write the word question, it does help me spot those a little bit easier. So tell us about the afternoon tea on Holland America. It sounds like you were disappointed. I was very disappointed.
Yeah.
In fact, there's a video clip which I realized, which I actually put, when I edited, I put some music over, but the original video clip, it was Mark saying, "This is terrible afternoon tea," or something like that, or "This is the worst afternoon tea," which is very unusual because normally Holland America does really good afternoon tea. But basically, what I think they were doing, because they were only doing it on sea days, whereas most of the cruises they've done it on all the days. But I guess so many people getting off on sea days, I guess they didn't do it. So when the day we went, the line, we thought we were early. We went like 4 minutes to 3 or 5 minutes to 3 because we were ready. The line went right from the main dining room right through the photo center, whatever. It was a massive, almost the whole first half side of the upstairs was seated. I don't know how many, must seat hundreds of people, 400 people, I don't know. But there was a lot of people. So I guess what they'd also done is they'd made the afternoon tea, clearly it was drying out. Like the sandwiches were a bit,
the sandwiges
they weren't stale, they were just a bit dried out. So everything was a bit, whereas normally it's less like that.
The scones already had cream and jam in them,
which they did on my proofs when they're already they're kind of done. They got the cream and
they
jam
weren't very good.
And they weren't very good. So I was very disappointed, but it was an exception. So hopefully that is going to be the exception. Now I'm back on Holland America on Amsterdam in February. I'm on for 2 weeks. So the good news is if the afternoon tea is really bad, it's good because I won't go too often, but it's bad if it's bad. So, because I do love my afternoon tea. Fiona, I think we answered that question, I guess, because we're probably behind. I think we answered the question. I think it was Fiona who answered the question, wasn't it, on that? If not, we've hopefully answered that. So we answered the nickel and dime question there. Okay. This is a difficult, I think this is a difficult, no, maybe it's not a difficult one. CG in London asking, Norwegian Prima Haven Penthouse Suite or Silversea Classic Veranda for Norway Fjord Cruise. Personally, if I was booking the Norwegian Fjord, I would go with the smaller ship rather than the bigger ship. I guess they're probably going to be price-wise the same. Prima and Viva are very expensive. Their havens are really, really expensive. But maybe also because I booked one because I booked for Viva when it comes on. I think it's really expensive for what it is. So I would go with the smaller ship. I would look at the itinerary, first of all. But the advantage with the smaller ship is you're probably going to be able to dock in all those places that you go to. It's probably going to go to some of the smaller places, although a lot of the places now have these floating walkways that they bring when the bigger ships are in. But just the swamping of those smaller places, Prima is going to have 2,800, if I remember correctly, people, I can't remember something like that. But you kind of all those people are pouring off, going on excursions and stuff. Whereas Silversea is going to be a much smaller, more intimate experience. And I suspect, but look at the itinerary, because I suspect, and I don't know, but Prima is likely to rely a little bit more on Bergen, Svanger, and so on. So I would go smaller ship, but focus on the itinerary. And it's probably good. Oh, look, someone likes Din Tai Fung food, which is good to hear. How are we doing on time? Afternoon tea came, snack candies pre-made. You're right. So the same thing there. Let's have a look about Din Tai Fung. It's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting about just raising the point about great restaurants. I think we've had some quite good meals in Vegas, but we tend to, because the problem is often when we're in Vegas, because of the time difference, we're really hungry at lunchtime. So we tend to, and at lunchtime, you don't always just go to fancy restaurants at lunchtime. So we end up tending to eat not fast food because we don't do that. But one thing we did like, actually, was new at Aria. They've introduced like a food court thing, that was pretty good. So Robert asking, what are your thoughts on the Prima? I'm not sailing on Prima, Robert. I've booked on Viva, the second in the class to come. And luckily I booked it far enough out because they've keep cancelling Viva. I'm really intrigued. I've had very mixed views on Prima. Some people love it, some people haven't. I've seen it look from the outside. I think it looks a great ship. So I'm really excited about trying Prima. And it's not a massively big ship, which I also like. So let's have a look. Christine, question. I cruised on Norwegian Sun and Carnival Radiance. I found the food in the main dining room not to be very good. Do you recommend eating at the specialty restaurants for a better experience? So, I mean, Carnival and Norwegian, I guess, from a main dining room experience, are okay. They're not renowned as being some of the best main dining room food. So that's also probably partly a function of that. But you're right, particularly Norwegian, if you do focus, they put a lot of emphasis on their specialty dining because they want people to eat in special. I'm not saying they do bad food in Norwegian in the main dining room, but I would say on Norwegian, if you want a more varied experience, definitely the specialty. If you were going more, like Holland America or Cunard or even Princess, if it's so certain I'm getting better, you probably find the main dining room less need to. I mean, I think, like we said, we didn't feel a need to go to the specialities. We actually went because we wanted to go to Tamarin because we kind of like, but even in Tamarin, we're like, should we really spend this money?
But having said that, we met a very nice lady, Jill, on the cruise, and she was with a multi-generational family, and they had gone to the main dining room on the second night, actually, I think.
Yeah.
And I mean, she said from then on they just went to the specialty restaurants because they didn't have a good experience there. So I think we were lucky we were in Club Orange, and that made a difference, I think.
Yeah. Magali, it's a good question, actually. I never really talk about this, but yes. So the question is, can you split costs in a cabin when traveling with a friend, not a family member? I'm going with a good friend. So yes, basically what you do when you check in online, you can do this. But again, when you get there, is you just you'll have your own car, your own separate cruise card. Anything you put on your cruise card will come up as your name, and you can associate a different credit card with those two. So everything's separate. So just if you use your own card, it will come to your name, be charged to your account. So if you're buying something and sharing, then you just have to do your own. Like you can't ask them to split the bill, but you could if you're going to a special restaurant. So if you're going to on depending on which celebrity ship you're on, but if you're going to Raw on 5 or something, you could ask for separate tabs and then put one on one cruise card on the other cruise card
and put individual drinks. In fact, on ours, they asked quite a lot. When we all both ordered a drink, they were like, shall we put both on one card or do you want to split them? So I think it would be very easy to do that.
Exactly. So, and then of course, if you've got the always included package, then some of those things would be included. Region go to South Africa too. Right. We have charged through and we're almost about to run out of time.
There's a nice question about Bora Bora somewhere I saw about French Polynesian Islands, but no, I think I saw it on the other. I think it's further
okay. I'll do this last. Please share your thoughts on Holland America Japan Cruise likes, dislikes. They have a great itinerary. I actually looked at them. I am actually going on Region 7C because I actually preferred their itinerary, but they do have a really, really good cruises, which of course now that Japan's open again, they are definitely great, I think, and they were very intensive. I went with Region because it was slightly longer and went to a few places that I really wanted to go, which weren't on the Holland America one, but they do have a really good itinerary and obviously much better value than doing something like Regent. Was the question that you wanted to answer?
Well, no, I just saw a question come up. There was someone talking about the French Polynesian Islands. Oh, look, there's my mother on there.
Oh. This is Mark's mother. I hope you have a great holiday. Very happy. So you're supposed to be asking questions, not. Hello, Sally. Good to see Sally. That's the advantage or downside of putting it on Facebook, because Sally knows how to use Facebook. Anyway, so I think so.
Someone had asked a question. There is a question here somewhere about going to the French Polynesian Islands, and we went on Paul Gauguin, which was probably my favorite, one of my favorite, if not. There it is. Next one down. Yeah. That one. Yeah. On the honeymoon, something in French Polynesia or Bora Bora. We went on Paul Gauguin around the French Polynesian Islands, and it is amazing, fantastic. One of the best trips we've done, and actually we're doing it again in June next year. So definitely look at Paul Gauguin, which I think is now owned by Penant.
Yeah, so
it is an amazing.
So place. I would look at, for French Polynesia, I would look. Paul Gauguin sells all year round. Windstar also home bases, want some of their smaller ships there, so they're definitely worth looking at as well. If you want something very unusual, which maybe you don't want for a honeymoon, is Aranui, which is another local, is a half cruise ship, half freighter, and it does a slightly bigger itinerary, goes to some more out of the way islands, and that because they're basically transporting all the goods around, so it's a slightly different experience. So they want something a little bit different. You can also, on some of the bigger lines, Holland America Princess, they will go through that area as part of a bigger cruise. But I would, as Mark was saying, I would focus on one that is really sales based out of Tahiti, is one I would strongly recommend you do. Right, so thanks for all your joining us. It's like so much questions we haven't got through, but time is up, and we need to think about packing and stuff. So if it's New Year, have a great New Year. If it's not New Year, have a great New Year coming up, if that makes sense. As I mentioned at the beginning, if you're a channel member or patron, the first of my group cruises will be announced for booking next week. I'm starting with just a patron member one because there will be one later in 2024, which will be a bigger one, which everyone can join. So I'm doing more of a trial thing for that. So have a great New Year. I will be back with a live stream talking 2023 and cruising on next Saturday, the 7th. This week's video has just gone live, which is the second in the series around Galapagos. So thanks for joining us, and have a great New Year.